Namaskar, this is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. It was supposed to be a routine public event, a president meeting her people, but it turned into a reminder of how unsafe public life can be for women. Mexico's first woman president, Claudia Sheinbaum, was harassed by a man in a crowd. If this can happen to a president, what protection does any woman have? We'll talk about this on the show tonight. Also, mysterious drones have now reached the heart of Europe. The Brussels airport was closed for hours after drone sightings. Why NVIDIA's Jensen Huang thinks the US is losing the AI race to China. How the US government shutdown is hitting air travel. Flights are being cancelled at 40 airports across the United States. Why Donald Trump wants to invade Nigeria now. How leading companies are fleeing Pakistan. How the Philippines is reeling from its deadliest storm this year. And what is vibe coding? The Collins Dictionary Word of the Year. We'll bring you all of that and more. First, as always, the headlines. The European Union opens a probe into Nasdaq and Deutsche Börse. The European Commission says it suspects the stock exchange operators of possible collusion involving financial derivatives. In September, EU investigators had carried out raids on these two firms. Financial derivatives are contracts whose value is derived from assets such as bonds and stocks. Hezbollah rejects any negotiation between Lebanon and Israel, insisting that it has a right to defend itself. This follows pressure from the United States and Egypt on Beirut. Technically, Lebanon and Israel are still in a state of war, but all recent conflicts with Israel have been fought by the Iran-backed group and not the Lebanese military. Donald Trump to host all 5 Central Asian leaders in Washington. This will be the first such meet with the US president. It comes just months after they held separate summits with Russia's Vladimir Putin and China's Xi Jinping. Washington has upped its interest in the resource-rich region where Moscow's traditional influence is being questioned. In India, Bihar votes in the first phase. The political fate of several top leaders will be decided in this phase. This includes the opposition's chief ministerial phase, Tejasvi Yadav. The second and final phase of voting will take place on the 11th of November. The results will be announced on the 14th of November. And world leaders will meet in the Brazilian Amazon. About 50 heads of state are expected in the rainforest city of Belém. The aim is to show that climate change remains a top global priority despite broken promises and the US shunning the gathering. Donald Trump has called climate science a con job. Every night on the show, we talk about geopolitics. We talk about wars. We talk about economies rising and falling. Those stories usually make our lead, but tonight the top story is different. And we believe it should be. Because it begins with these pictures from Mexico. These are pictures of Claudia Sheinbaum, the first woman president of Mexico. The president was out in public. She was interacting with her supporters, even clicking selfies with the people. It's something she has long done. And then it happened. A drunk man forced himself towards her. At first, she did not notice. Then he leaned in. He tried to kiss her and even groped her. Her security finally intervened. They pulled him away. The man has since been arrested. The Mexican president says she will press charges.
I experienced this episode of harassment. At that moment, I was talking to other people and didn't realize what was happening immediately. Juan Jose, who coordinates the entire support team, came over and moved him away. It was only after I saw the videos that I understood what had really happened because I was speaking with many people. Yes, I obviously felt this person's closeness. He was, I repeat, completely drunk. I don't know if he was also on drugs, but I decided to file a complaint because this is something I experienced as a woman, and it's something women in our country go through.
Let's pause here for a second. This is the president of a country, a head of state, a woman who has shattered political glass ceilings. Yet, She was sexually assaulted in public, in broad daylight, surrounded by cameras, with her security and supporters around. She can be the leader of her country, but a man still thought her body was public property. And kudos to President Sheinbaum. She was remarkably composed during this incident. She later said she did not realize the full extent of the violation. Not until she saw the video herself. But there's something else that she said too. And it deserves our attention. Listen to this.
And my reflection is, if I don't file a complaint, even though this is a crime, then what position does that leave all Mexican women in? If they do this to the president, then what will happen to all the young women in our country? So it has to. It's with the Attorney General's office in Mexico City because this is a local jurisdiction crime. I filed a complaint. It turns out this person later went on to harass other women right there on that same street. So this person is now under arrest.
You heard that. She says if she did not file a complaint, where would it leave all other Mexican women? What example would it set to them? And it is such a stark line because in Mexico, 10 women are murdered every day. Thousands are groped or catcalled on streets. 7 out of 10 women will face sexual harassment in their lifetime. That's 70% of all women in Mexico. 70%. So President Claudia Sheinbaum is trying to lead by example to set a precedent. It's a good move. But it's a shame she had to do this in the first place. It shows you that a woman can win power, but safety, that still remains elusive. Look at these numbers from across the globe. 80% women experience psychological violence. That is harassment, sexist humiliation, and targeted abuse. 65% are subjected to sexual or sexist insults. 44% receive threats of death or sexual violence. Over a quarter have faced physical attacks. And women mayors, they are 3 times more likely to be attacked than their male counterparts. Power, it turns out, does not shield women. It only changes the headlines. And if that sounds dramatic, here's more for you. In 2021, a British woman named Sarah Everard never made it home from a friend's house. Her murderer was a police officer. In India, a rape is reported every 16 minutes, 1 in every 16 minutes. In France, more than 80% women, more than 80% women say they face sexual harassment in public spaces. In Japan, groping incidents are so common on trains that there is even a word for it. It's called chikan. The world over, 1 in 3 women aged 15 or above have experienced physical or sexual violence. Think about every third woman you know. Every hour, 5 women are killed by an intimate partner or family member. Each country has its own laws, its own campaigns, its own slogans. Me Too, Ni Una Menos, Reclaim the Night, whatever you call it. But the reality does not change. So tonight, let's call this what it is. It is a global failure. A failure of laws, of culture, of education, of leadership. A failure of all systems. Because when a president is not safe, what chance does a schoolgirl have? Or a working woman on a bus? Or a daughter walking home? We like to talk about women breaking glass ceilings. We celebrate their first president, first minister, first CEO. But women do not need inspirational quotes. They do not need hashtags. They need a world that does not treat their safety as charity. Because, and I repeat, if this can happen to a president in broad daylight, it can happen to anyone. This is no world for women yet, but it could be. If we stop treating stories like Sheinbaum's as shocking and start treating them as unacceptable. There's a lot of unease in Europe, a lot of fears about a silent, mysterious threat. I'm talking about drones. Multiple drones have been sneaking into European countries. They have been spotted over strategic locations like airports and military bases. No one knows where they're coming from. No one knows who is launching them. And no one knows what the end goal is. Like I said, it's a silent and mysterious threat. And the latest victim is Brussels. On Tuesday, drones were spotted over the Brussels airport. At 8 p.m. local time, air traffic was halted. All flight operations at Brussels were stopped. No takeoffs, no landings. This led to major disruptions in travel plans. A lot of passengers ended up bunking inside the airport.
Very much. I'm Ukrainian and I'm very much concerned that now in the heart of Europe we can see drones flying out of nowhere, and we have no means to prevent that or to fight that back for now.
I'm totally speechless because I have never came across these type of situations. So this is something new for me. But let's just hope for the best. This is the best that I can say right now.
As of now, some flights have resumed, but operations are not back to normal. The question is, what happened? Who fired these drones? That's what Belgium is wondering too. Today, their government held an emergency meeting. Belgium's defense minister called these drone sightings intentional and disruptive.
We see that it is coordinated in time and space. These are not all coordinated actions in time and space. It is intentionally disruptive. It often happens at the same time, the darkest moment of the day, just after dusk, just before the stars appear. It is then pitch black.
Officially, Belgium is not blaming anyone, but sources in their government have accused a state actor. They say it's most probably Russia. And this is not an isolated incident. Over the weekend, drones were spotted over a military base in Belgium. Last month, drones halted operations at the Munich airport. In September, they halted flights at Oslo and Copenhagen. So clearly, there is a pattern. But this attack stands out because Brussels is not just the capital of Belgium. It is the heart of Europe, the headquarters of the European Union, the headquarters of NATO. Basically, Brussels is the nerve center of European politics, so drones over Brussels is a big red flag. Naturally, the suspicion is on Russia. But why would Moscow do something like this? And why isn't Europe calling them out? If it is indeed Russia, they have many reasons to do this. A, to spy on Europe. Just consider the sightings over the weekend. The drones were spotted over a crucial Belgian base, a base that hosts US nuclear weapons. So maybe the idea is to probe European defenses to see how capable they are. And B, to test the limits of European resolve. We've seen multiple drone sightings in recent weeks, yet there is no military response, no effort to shoot down these drones. We asked Finland's president this week about this response on Monday. We asked him whether he would shoot down these drones. Listen to his response. There is already talk of some hybrid warfare, though, and drone sightings in this part of the world. And while Russia has not been named explicitly, hints have been dropped. Would you say that Russia is behind these incursions?
Well, yes, some of them, but not all of them.
The US president suggests you should shoot them down if they enter NATO airspace. Would you shoot them down?
Well, we have a very clear protocol on this. We just visited our Air Force headquarters. I'm in constant conversation, communication with our border guards. We know exactly what happens, when happens, and how to deal with things. And so far, we haven't been in a situation where there's been any need for a shoot down, and I presume we won't be there either.
So Europe is non-committal. As of now, they have no unanimous policy for these drones, which brings us to the second question. Why isn't Brussels calling out Russia? It could be because of the lack of evidence. Maybe there is no proof tying Russia to these drones, or maybe it's not Russia at all. Just think back to 2022. A crucial gas pipeline was blown up in Europe, the Nord Stream pipeline. It was blown up. Europe was quick to blame Russia for this attack. They accused Moscow of weaponizing energy. But guess what? It was not Russia that carried out that attack. It was a Ukrainian hit team. Reports say the operation was approved by Ukraine's President Zelensky himself, and the logic is quite simple. Ukraine wants more European support. They want Europe to feel like they're under Russian attack. So could these drones be a similar ploy? The fact is we can't be sure. But keep an eye on Europe's response. Yes, they don't want to spread panic among the people, but how long can they ignore this threat? Eventually, Brussels will have to take a call. Will it display weakness by allowing these drones to fly, or will it shoot them down? We'll be tracking things closely. Now let's talk about NVIDIA. Last week, NVIDIA crossed a big milestone. It became a $5 trillion company, the only company in the world to achieve this feat. This also makes it the world's most valuable company. Well, that should be reason to celebrate. Instead, NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang is sounding alarm bells. He says the United States could lose the AI race and that China is pulling ahead. Huang made this statement at an AI summit and there was no ambiguity in what he said. Let me quote, "China is going to win the AI race." That was Jensen Huang's blunt message. But why does he think that China is winning? Why does he think the US is falling behind? Well, he gave three reasons: high energy costs, heavy regulation, and what he called rising cynicism in the West. The NVIDIA boss highlighted how China is subsidizing energy and offering state support to chip makers. He said that for some chip makers in China, or for chip makers in China in general, power is free. And he's not exaggerating. Look at this report. It talks about China's latest energy subsidies. 3 local governments have slashed power bills: Guizhou, Inner Mongolia, and Gansu. They are giving incentives to large data centers. For them, electricity costs have been cut by up to 50%. But if you want this discount, there's also a condition. These companies must use Chinese chips in their facilities. Only then can they get this 50% discount on their electricity bill. The goal of the policy is quite clear: make local technology cheaper and attractive, especially against NVIDIA. And Chinese tech giants are already cashing in. We're talking about companies like ByteDance, Alibaba, and Tencent. Their power bills have been slashed by half. Those using NVIDIA's imported chips do not qualify for these discounts. The message, again, is simple: use Chinese, not American. This push is part of a wider plan. Beijing wants to build an entire AI ecosystem at home. It is pouring money into all areas: research, patents, and infrastructure. In fact, China already has more patents than any other country in the world. In the AI space, almost 70% of patents are held by Chinese players. In research, China accounts for more than 22% of AI citations. The US stands at 13%. Jensen Huang says these numbers matter because China is making rapid progress. It is applying AI faster than anyone else. Whether it's cities, schools, or industries, China is already rolling out AI at scale, and it's the Chinese government that is driving this effort. It is actively pushing AI integration into every sector. Meanwhile, the US is still debating regulation and restrictions around chip sales. In Huang's words, that is too much cynicism. But NVIDIA's warning is not only about geopolitics, it's also about business. The company has a near monopoly in AI chip making. And that monopoly may come under threat. And the problem begins with American policy. America's export bans have shut NVIDIA out of China. Until recently, NVIDIA controlled 95% of China's AI chip market. Now that share has fallen to zero. Huang himself confirmed all of this last month. The ban had an impact on NVIDIA's earnings, he said. It wiped out $17 billion in revenue from China. The company tried to stage a comeback. It has been negotiating with the US government. It has pushed for the sales ban to be lifted. Last month, Jensen Huang personally lobbied US President Donald Trump, but Trump refused. And that ended NVIDIA's last hope of restoring sales in China. Jensen Huang says if America keeps China cut off, it will accelerate Beijing's self-reliance drive. Chinese companies will fill the gap with domestic chips. Beijing is already subsidizing their production. It's also building new power grids that are cheaper and greener. So even if Chinese chips are less powerful, their cost advantage is growing thanks to their subsidies. So China now presents a serious challenge, not just to NVIDIA's dominance in AI chips, but to America's dominance in the technology sphere, because chips are no longer just hardware. They are the foundation of the next industrial era. They power everything from data centers to defense systems, and they will shape the balance of global power. China knows this. So it is building fast, spending big money, and closing the gap. For the US and for NVIDIA, this is more than a battle to win business. It's a fight for technological leadership. They might be ahead for now, but the gap is beginning to shrink. Now let's talk about the United States. The government there has been shut down, and it's been that way for more than a month now. This is the longest government shutdown in American history. But what does that mean? A shutdown happens when the US Congress fails to agree on a budget. And without that agreement, without a budget, funding stops. And when funding stops, many government offices close. Some employees are sent home. Others, like air traffic controllers, still have to work, but they don't get paid. Right now, that's the reality for more than 1.4 million federal workers. The shutdown began on the 1st of October. After 36 days, its impacts are hard to miss. In fact, one of the biggest is in the sky. Yesterday, the US government announced that it will cut 10% of its flights. 10%. The cuts will affect 40 major airports across the country, and they begin tomorrow. It is one of the most drastic moves ever seen in American aviation, and the reason for this is safety. Air traffic controllers have been working without pay since the shutdown began. They direct planes in the sky. That is one of the most stressful jobs in the world, but after 5 weeks without a salary, many are struggling. Some are taking second jobs, others cannot afford fuel or childcare, and many are showing signs of fatigue. The government says that makes the system unsafe, so to reduce pressure, the US is cutting flights.
But we do recognize that the controllers have been working fastidiously for the last 5 weeks with this huge burden over their head of lack of compensation. And we are starting to see some evidence that that fatigue is building in the system in ways that we feel we need to work towards relieving some of that pressure.
The U.S. Transportation Secretary is a man called Sean Duffy. He says the decision is based on data, and he admits that the move will disrupt travel. But he insists that this had to be done. Take a look.
There will be frustration. We are working with the airlines. They're going to work with passengers. But in the end, our sole role is to make sure that we keep this airspace as safe as possible.
Let me put this into perspective for you. The U.S. aviation regulator handles more than 44,000 flights every day, so a 10% cut is massive. In total, it could mean about 1,800 flights and around 268,000 seats cut each day, 268,000 passengers or seats. For now, the reductions will start small, 4% on Friday, 5% on Saturday, and it will reach 10% by next week. These cuts will affect some of America's busiest airports, New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Atlanta, Dallas, among others. And that has airlines racing to adjust. They're working to limit the disruption. They're urging the Congress to end the shutdown immediately. But this crisis is bigger than just flights. This is about politics. Republicans and Democrats, the two main political parties in the U.S., they're locked in a standoff. Democrats want to extend health care subsidies in low-income families. Republicans say they will only talk after the government reopens. President Donald Trump has accused the Democrats of trying to destroy the country. Right now, both sides remain stuck, and millions of Americans are paying the price. Low-income families are missing food stamp benefits. Those are government funds that help people buy groceries and basic supplies. Courts are running on emergency funds, and even the U.S. Federal Reserve is struggling to track the economy. Many government agencies have stopped releasing key economic data. That data shows how the U.S. economy is performing, and it helps officials make important decisions. Experts say the shutdown has already slowed America's growth. Reports estimate that the economy could shrink by up to 2 percentage points if the shutdown continues. Some of that damage will be permanent. Up to $14 billion could be lost. That's the money which won't come back. Even Wall Street banks are sounding the alarm. Goldman Sachs calls this the most damaging shutdown on record, and yet Washington remains deadlocked. This is now day 37 of the shutdown, and there is no breakthrough in sight. Now let's talk about Donald Trump. He may be planning yet another military invasion. After Venezuela and Mexico, he's threatening to attack Nigeria. Trump says he will go in guns a-blazing. Why? Because the US president says Christians are being persecuted in Nigeria. So he issued an ultimatum to Abuja. If the Nigerian government does not, and I'm quoting, does not move fast, there's going to be hell to pay. That's what Trump has said. Apparently, he watched a news report on Fox News, when he was on the Air Force One, and that kicked off a chain reaction. Here's a report.
Donald Trump has threatened to invade Nigeria. He said the attack would be fast, vicious, and sweet.
If we attack, it will be fast, vicious, and sweet, just like the terrorist thugs attack our cherished Christians. The Nigerian government better move fast before it's too late. If they don't, there's going to be hell to pay.
The warning came just hours after his party suffered major election losses, and it has stunned both Washington and Abuja. The statement was posted on Truth Social. Trump appeared behind a lectern. He accused Nigeria's government of failing to protect Christians. He said Islamic terrorists were killing cherished people. So why did he say this? It started on a flight aboard Air Force One. Trump was watching Fox News. The program claimed Christians in Nigeria were being persecuted. It ignored one key fact, that groups like Boko Haram and ISIS affiliates have killed far more Muslims than Christians. But that didn't matter. Trump was furious. Moments later, he ordered the Department of War to prepare for possible action. Reports say that some U.S. Africa command staff were recalled from Germany. They were told to discuss contingency plans for Nigeria. Nobody knows what those plans are, but Trump's message was unmistakable.
We're going to do things to Nigeria that Nigeria is not going to be happy about and may very well go into that now disgraced country, guns a-blazing, to completely wipe out the Islamic terrorists.
The timing raised eyebrows. The video came right after Trump's political humiliation. Republican candidates lost key races in Virginia, New Jersey, and New York City. Analysts say he was angry and looking to shift the narrative. This isn't new. Trump often mixes foreign threats with domestic frustration. He's pushed for a Nobel Peace Prize, but he keeps expanding military talk. Nigeria's reaction was swift. Officials in Abuja said they were shocked. A spokesperson for President Bola Tinubu called the threat deeply troubling. Nigeria reminded Washington that it remains a key U.S. ally and that its security problems are complex. They are not just about religion. They are about land disputes, ethnic tensions, and economic conflict. Nigeria is Africa's biggest democracy. It's also its largest economy, and one of America's closest partners on the continent. The U.S. invests heavily in energy mining and trade. It also provides security and humanitarian aid. A U.S. attack would put all that at risk and destabilize a fragile region. For now, there's no confirmation of military plans, but Trump's words have created uncertainty. A TV segment, a late-night post, and now a diplomatic crisis. It shows how quickly emotion can become policy, and how one statement from arguably the world's most powerful office can rattle an entire continent. Trump's message was loud, but the consequences could be louder.
There's always an exodus from Pakistan, either of people or of prime ministers or of companies and investors. Tonight we're looking at that last group. A growing number of companies are pulling out of Pakistan. Leading the pack is Qatar's Al Thani Group. This group has a 49% stake in a Pakistani power project, Port Qasim near Karachi. But reports say the Qataris want an exit. They're looking to sell their 49% stake, and this is a big move. Port Qasim is part of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, or CPEC. Qatar had invested more than $1 billion in it, so to leave now is a big setback to Pakistan. The question is why? Why do they want to leave? With Pakistan, it's always about money, or the lack of it. Port Qasim sells electricity to Pakistan's power board, but in return, they're not getting paid. Officials complain of delays in settling the bills. Things are so bad that the plant officials threaten to cut off supply, and in that context, Qatar's decision is not surprising at all. Also, it's not an isolated incident. Foreign companies have been leaving Pakistan for a while now. In 2023, Shell Petroleum sold its Pakistan business. They divested 77% stake in Shell Pakistan. In 2024, French energy firm Total Energies exited Pakistan. They sold 50% of their stake to a commodities trader. And this year, Microsoft also exited Pakistan. they wrapped up their last remaining office in the country. That too after 25 years. And the list does not end here. Eli Lilly, Uber, Yamaha and Procter & Gamble have also left Pakistan. Clearly, this shows a pattern. But what explains this corporate exodus? And what is Pakistan doing about it? Well, Pakistan is an investor's worst nightmare. No political stability, not enough security and no clear policy directions. Just look at security. 2025 is on track to be Pakistan's worst year. Around 2,400 people have been killed in terror attacks so far. That's from January to September. 2,400 people. Last year, this number was around 1,500, meaning the deaths are up by 58%. Two provinces make up nearly all these deaths. First is Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and the second is Balochistan. And Balochistan is being billed as an economic hotspot. It is the nerve center for CPEC projects. Yet the security is abysmal. So naturally investors are worried. And don't forget the political issues. No Pakistani Prime Minister has completed their full term in office, ever. Even their most recent election was completely rigged. Beyond this, there are two main reasons. Number one, the lack of an industrial base. You need to invest money to build this up. We are talking about things like roads, machines and factories, things that attract producers. Pakistan spends 12% of their GDP on such investments. The average for South Asia is 32%. If you don't invest, you cannot build up an industrial base. The next reason number two, is a poor tax code. Companies in Pakistan pay up to 50% in taxes. But look at the global average. It's just 25.4%. So companies pay double the tax for poorer infrastructure. Same with people. Pakistanis have seen their incomes diminish in recent years by almost 50% since 2018. If you add all of this, a clear picture emerges. That of a country that is completely uninvestable. So what is Pakistan doing about it? As always, Islamabad is looking outward. They're wooing the US president to secure investments. And Donald Trump has obliged. He is investing in Pakistan's rare earths and oil. Fun fact. Pakistan has, and listen to this, Pakistan has 0.02% of the global oil reserves. Meaning Trump's bet is likely to be a non-starter. Frankly, all of this comes down to priorities. This year, Pakistan hiked its defense spending by 20%. They can spend money on missiles, they can funnel money to terror groups, but they won't spend money where it really matters. So this corporate exodus is not surprising. It is the logical conclusion of Pakistan's suicidal policies. Donald Trump's silver bullet could soon be axed. I'm talking about his tariffs. Trump has used tariffs to arm twist friends and foes alike. It's basically his go-to policy weapon, but America's Supreme Court could soon strike it down. As we speak, the court is hearing a case. It is deciding whether President Trump's tariffs are legal or not, whether he had the power to impose them in the first place. Yesterday was the first day of hearing, and it did not go well for President Trump. So is there a likelihood of the court striking down these tariffs? And if that happens, what happens to the trade negotiations? Our next report tells you.
It was a riveting day at the U.S. Supreme Court, a hearing that would have been keenly watched across the world. At the center of it, Donald Trump's tariffs. Does the president have legal powers to impose tariffs, or is it an executive overreach? The court's composition would have given Trump confidence. It has 6 conservative judges and just 3 liberal ones. But on Wednesday, things played out differently. One by one, the conservative judges questioned Trump's decision.
Can you point to any other place in the code or any other time in history where that phrase, together, regulate importation, has been used to confer tariff-imposing authority?
Well, but the exercise of the power is to impose tariffs, right? And the statute doesn't use the word tariffs.
Congress, as a practical matter, can't get this power back once it's handed it over to the president. It's a one-way ratchet toward the gradual but continual accretion of power in the executive branch.
Let's unpack the case. Trump has used a 1977 law to impose his tariffs, the IEEPA, or the International Emergency Powers Act. This law empowers the president to regulate U.S. trade affairs, but on one condition: that the move is a response to an emergency. Trump's team says America's trade deficit qualifies as an emergency, that it threatens the country's industrial base, and therefore the IEEPA can be invoked. On the other side is a coalition of petitioners from multiple U.S. states to small and medium business. It's a pretty broad coalition, and their argument is about overreach of power. Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution is pretty clear. It says only the Congress can impose taxes on the people, not the president. And tariffs, by definition, are a form of tax. It's a pretty solid argument on paper, which is why the judges question Trump's move. Nonetheless, the White House is confident. It sent Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick to attend the hearing. They were upbeat despite the criticism.
I think it went very well. I think the Solicitor General made a very powerful case for the need for the president to have the IEEPA powers, and I believe that the other side, in a way, fell flat on their face.
The court usually takes months to rule, but considering the urgency of the situation, things could move fast. And what if they vote to cancel Trump's tariffs? Then we would be in uncharted waters. The U.S. government has collected some $90 billion in tariffs. Some or all of it may have to be returned. And don't forget the trade talks. Several countries had struck deals to reduce U.S. tariffs. Would those deals simply cease to exist, or will new ones be negotiated? Rest assured, every country will be watching this closely.
Our next story is from the Philippines. The Southeast Asian country is reeling from its deadliest storm this year. It is called Typhoon Kalmegi. The typhoon has torn through the central parts of the country. Homes have been flattened, streets have turned into rivers, cars and houses have been swept away in minutes. The storm has left more than 140 people dead in the Philippines. Over 100 more are still missing. Philippines' President, Ferdinand Marcos Jr., has declared the typhoon a national calamity. Rescue teams are clearing the debris and searching for survivors. But the typhoon is not done yet. It is moving west towards Vietnam and Thailand. Both countries are now bracing for impact. Here's a report.
The Philippines is reeling from its deadliest storm this year. Typhoon Kalmegi has killed at least 142 people. Another 127 are still missing. The storm unleashed catastrophic floods across the central islands of the country. Cebu, one of the country's most populated provinces, was the worst hit. Floodwaters described as unprecedented swept through neighborhoods. Cars, homes, and even shopping containers were carried away. When the water receded, the destruction was clear. Flattened homes, streets filled with debris, thick mud blanketing everything. More than 500,000 people remained displaced. Many have lost their homes and are staying in evacuation centers. Others are still searching for missing family members. In the hardest hit areas, rescue teams are clearing roads and retrieving bodies. A military helicopter deployed for relief crashed earlier this week, killing 6 crew members. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has declared the typhoon a national calamity.
Because of the scope of, shall we say, problem areas that will be hit, that has been hit by Tino and will be hit by Uwan, there was a proposal from the NDRMC, which I approved, that we will declare a national calamity. Because ilang regions na yan, there will be almost 10 regions, 10, 12 regions that will be affected. So, pagka ganun karami, ganun ang scope, then we will really have to, then it is a national calamity. So,
the declaration allows the government to release emergency funds and speed up relief. Meteorologists say the rains were 1.5 times higher than the average for November. They call it a once-in-20 years event. Still more than 1,500 kilometers to the east, tropical storm Phunwong, locally called Uwan, is slowly building strength. Meanwhile, Kalmegi has crossed the South China Sea and is regaining strength. Vietnam is bracing for impact as the typhoon makes a landfall. Authorities have ordered hundreds of thousands to evacuate. Officials warn of waves up to 8 meters high. Vietnam's Deputy Prime Minister has called Kalmegi a very abnormal and dangerous storm. Vietnam's aviation authorities say operations at 8 airports are likely to be affected. Airlines and local officials have been told to closely monitor the storm to ensure passenger safety. Thailand too is reportedly bracing for the impact of Kalmegi. Officials there have warned of possible flash floods, landslides and river overflows. Kalmegi is now reported to be the deadliest typhoon in the world this year. The Philippines has already faced a relentless year of disasters. 20 storms have struck the country so far. And for the Philippines, it is another reminder of the growing threat from powerful weather systems. For now, Kalmegi has moved on, but its aftermath lingers across the Philippines.
If someone from 1935 time traveled to 2025, they would be confused by a lot of things. Cars that drive themselves, a world glued to 10-second videos, payments using digital money. But if there's one thing that would completely blow their mind, it's language. The way we speak, the words we use, the language we have invented. Because today, English is not just evolving, it is mutating at record speed. Take vibe coding, for instance. It's just been crowned Word of the Year by Collins Dictionary. But what on earth does it mean? We know vibes, we know coding, but put them together and it means something unusual. Vibe coding is the art of building an app or a website without writing a single line of code yourself. You don't write the code, artificial intelligence does it for you. You describe it to AI, AI then writes the code and the website or app is built. So are you coding? In technical terms, no. But in 2025, you're coding for the vibe. The term was coined by OpenAI co-founder Andrei Karpathy. And it's not the only such term on the list. There's clanker. The term came from Star Wars games and movies. It is now used when AI malfunctions. Chatbots glitch, robots mishear commands, self-checkout does not work. Then there's aura farming. You must remember this iconic video. This little boy took the internet by storm with this dance. But what does it mean? Don't worry, there's no real farming involved. It's being cool while being effortless. Farming that aura around you, that's what it is. Another term is broliogarchy. It's a mix of brother and oligarchy. The term was born during Silicon Valley's political era, tech leaders acting as bros. But the term really took off this year, right after the inauguration of US President Donald Trump. It had tech billionaires and CEOs standing shoulder to shoulder, and thus the term broliogarchy. There are also other terms in the top 10. Some are not so Gen Z. Take biohacking, for example. It is the DIY practice of intentionally altering your body or brain. You use data, lifestyle changes, supplements or gadgets, all to improve health and lifestyle. Then there's micro-retirement. That's a break taken between periods of employment. Or even coolcation, taking a vacation in a cooler climate. Some are even acronyms like HENRY. It stands for High Earner, Not Rich Yet. HENRY. This is your friend who makes great money, but savings are lacking. The bank account is waiting to catch up with the lifestyle. Henry. Now, if you're confused, do not worry. A lot of us are too. Shakespeare was credited for introducing 1,700 words in English. Gen Z does it in 1 year. They're quite the wordsmiths. And if you feel like English is not Englishing anymore, you're not wrong. In Gen Z speak, words don't mean what they used to. Half the time, they don't even want to. And we might as well get used to it, because this language is not a phase. It is everywhere. Movies, books, TikTok feeds, brand campaigns, even the dictionaries have surrendered. This Collins Dictionary list is a case in point. And here's the funny part. Every generation bends language. Gen Z just bends it faster and louder. Well, you can fight it, or you can learn it. Or like most of us, you can just pretend that you understand and pray that context helps. But we suggest you get the drift ASAP. Because You know who's growing up next? Gen Alpha. And who knows what they come up with. Our final story tonight is on fake news. It's everywhere, on your phone, on your feed, and sometimes even on your family WhatsApp group. It looks real, it sounds convincing, and spreads faster than the truth. England now wants to fight that by teaching children to question what they see, not with online bans, but through education. For the first time, school children will be taught how to spot fake news. It's part of a major overhaul of England's school curriculum. The goal is quite simple: to prepare a generation that can tell fact from fiction in a digital age. Similar classes already exist in other parts of the world, including in Finland and Taiwan. And now England is joining the list. But will this be enough to stem the tide of misinformation? Here's our report.
People today are surrounded by more information than ever before. News, videos, and posts reach audiences in seconds. But not all of it is accurate. The ease of sharing online has made it harder to separate verified facts from false claims. A survey in 35 countries found that more than 8 in 10 adults consider false or misleading news a major problem in their country. In the UK, about 4 in 10 adults say they encounter misinformation online. With misinformation shaping how people read and share news, governments are exploring different ways to identify and limit its spread. In England, that effort is starting in the classroom. For the first time, schools will teach pupils how to identify fake news and misinformation. It's part of a major overhaul of the national curriculum, the biggest in more than a decade. The plan aims to give children the skills to question what they read, see, and share online. From 2028, primary school pupils will be taught how to identify misinformation and disinformation. They will learn how false information spreads and how to check if a story, image, or source is genuine. They will also study artificial intelligence, understanding how algorithms influence what people read and watch online. These lessons will be part of new citizenship classes, which will also include financial education, democracy, and climate awareness. The government says the reforms aim to strengthen critical thinking and digital literacy. It will help pupils assess information and weigh evidence online. The updated curriculum will also introduce new reading and writing assessments to support literacy and communication skills. Schools will have time to prepare once the final version is published in 2027. Similar initiatives are already in place elsewhere. In Finland, media literacy has been reportedly part of the national curriculum since 2014. Children there are taught to question sources and verify claims through everyday examples in class. Finland is widely recognized as Europe's leader in media literacy. Across Asia, Taiwan has taken a similar approach. There, students learn how to recognize propaganda, confirm digital sources, and understand how online manipulation works. Officials describe it as a way to strengthen public understanding and democratic awareness. Together, these programs highlight a global recognition that misinformation cannot be stopped by technology alone. It also requires teaching people how to question, verify, and think critically about the information they consume. England's new lessons follow that same idea, starting the process early, in the classroom.
Donald Trump is jealous of Xi Jinping. I know it sounds a bit strange. Trump has the bigger economy, he's got the bigger military, he's also got more press coverage. So why is he jealous of Xi Jinping? Apparently because of Xi's team of yes men. Trump says the Chinese president's team is well behaved and obedient. But his own team, he says they speak out of turn. Listen to this.
So he's here, and he's got about 6 people on each side, and every one of those people was standing like this. They were at attention. And I made a comment to one of them, and I got no response. I said, are you going to answer me? I got no response. And President Xi didn't let him have any. So if there's any question, I said, I want my cabinet to behave like that. That's the way. I'm demanding that I want them sitting up like that. I've never seen men so scared in their lives. I said, are you going to answer my question? And he's like, he doesn't move. I said, what's wrong with this guy? I will answer all questions. Why don't you behave like that? JD doesn't behave like that. JD buds into conversations.
And now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. The year's largest supermoon lights up the skies across the world. A dramatic video shows a car in New York City exploding into a fireball. And elite special forces units from Greece and Cyprus take part in counter-terrorism drills at sea. Finally, we're taking you back in history. On this day in 1860, Abraham Lincoln was elected as the 16th President of the United States. Lincoln's victory led to the secession of the southern states, followed by the Civil War in America. It ended in 1865 with the abolition of slavery. We're leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.